I'm Yunruo, and welcome to our first episode of our new Reform and Resettle podcast project, where we will be interviewing and talking to different community members as well as those who work at the shelters that we're affiliated with to kind of discuss their experiences and their perspectives on the homelessness issue in downtown Montreal.
So today for our first episode, we're going to be with Andy, and Andy is from St. Michael's Mission, which is a shelter that Reform and Resettle delivers weekly meals to. And so if you could just tell a little bit about yourself, where are you from, what's your background, and things like that.
Well, first of all, I'm working with St. Michael's Mission as a community liaison officer. So my job is mostly just to relay information both within the organization and then with the outside. There's kind of no limitation to what that can mean, but I'm basically just trying to make sure that everyone is on the same page and that we're doing the best we can to understand the situations that we're dealing with together. I've been working with the mission for 5 years on and off. I grew up in Belgium, but then I came to Montreal to do my studies, and I've stayed here almost the entire time since. I studied philosophy and political science at McGill, but then after I finished my studies, I wasn't very interested in the paths that are conventional for that kind of background. So I started working in a bakery that was nearby, and I spent about a year in that kind of environment, and then afterwards I happened to meet a volunteer at St. Michael's Mission, and I started volunteering there, and by coincidence I was there at a time when the cook was going on paternity leave, and they asked me to take over for him for 2 months, and I didn't really have any formal training or qualification for that, but things just kind of worked out that way, and then eventually I came back and I cooked full time, and I did other work both in cooking and also social work in different organizations before coming back here, and then eventually taking on this role, which is a little bit different, but I feel kind of allows me to make the most of all of the experiences I've had so far.
Wow, that's a really interesting background. Like, you have many experiences that led you to where you are today. So that's very interesting to know. Our next question for you is, what do you find rewarding about your position, and have you had any impactful experiences that kind of stick out to you throughout your time at St. Michael's Mission?
I feel like it's hard to narrow that, just because every day at the mission, no matter what position you have a very rich experience. This is a place where you have a lot of different things all coming together, a lot of people with a lot of different stories, and a lot of needs all kind of happening all the time. And so really a lot of the experience is just sort of navigating that, doing our best to understand what's going on and seeing how we ourselves can help. And for me, what I find most gratifying here is that it's a very sincere place. It's a place where you're working very honestly in a context that's not sheltered from the nature of everyday life. And I find that's something that is very precious and unusual. Often we can find ourselves in contexts where we're in a much more narrow perspective. We're just kind of working with something that's specific and isolated in a particular universe, whereas here you're kind of getting everything from everywhere, and you know that what you're doing is something very tangible and direct. You can see the meaning of your actions. I find in my current role I'm a little bit more distant from that because it's much more discursive, what I do, rather than concretely giving something that someone needs to them and looking that person in their eyes. But at the same time, I feel that I'm a part of that same process. So all of that together brings a very rewarding experience. It's very difficult, but at the same time, what it gives is beyond what it takes.
I mean, Yunruo and I deliver every week, and so I think we've definitely noticed how much of a welcoming environment it is. It's very warm, and it's just really nice to be able to experience that.
Yeah, and we noticed like all the staff are always like very appreciative, and we can really see just like the impact that people have on other people here, and it's really rewarding, like you said.
Our next question is, what are some challenges that you faced in your role? And also, you said that you've been working at St. Michael's Mission for the past 5 years, so if there's anything particularly with COVID, how did that, you saw it before and after COVID, how did that affect your role and just anything that you've seen since then?
Well, I think every day here is a challenge, just because that's what we're doing, is we're facing the challenges directly. I think in a very personal sense, the most direct challenge that you face is to your own character, because because it's such an earnest environment, you're always being poked at, and so any way you're not doing the best you can, it's going to reveal itself, and you're going to see it. I think the other thing, especially in my role, but this is also true for anyone who's working here, you do see just how difficult everyday life is for a lot of people, because here we serve a lot of people, but it's just scratching the surface of the whole situation, and that's also something we're aware of, and that comes with a lot of weight. So finding a good balance and a way of living through that is something that there's no easy answer for it. It's something that everyone works on every day.
Yeah.
This organization, because it's relatively small in its structure and receives less reliably in terms of funding than other organizations, it's one that fluctuates a lot in its structure, the way it works. So since I've been coming and going for the last 5 years, almost every aspect of the organization has changed, from the people who work here, the way we organize ourselves, and the balance of how much help is coming from volunteers and how much is coming from employees, to even the people that we're serving. But at the same time, there's a continuity in the basic attitude of the place, the basic intention that we have here. At the end of the day, that's also what's most essential to the place. So I would say that's also something about this organization, is that it's very simple and in a way modest in its scope, and because of that, the constant change that society goes through really reveals itself here. The pandemic certainly had a big effect, but that's one of many things that's happened, and while it's contributed to where we are now, it's not something that shaped and sculpted the organization to be what it is now.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like you said, working at like this kind of place and environment is very like fast paced. You have to think fast and make like adaptable decisions and stuff. So I think the work that you do here, as well as the other people, is very respectable and super impressive. So as someone who works like directly for this cause, what is your perspective on the issue of homelessness in downtown Montreal? And is there anything in particular that you think, based on your experiences working here, that you think would help solve the problem or do a little bit better job than what's happening like in the city right now?
I think with homelessness, it's most important to understand that you're dealing with a holistic, systemic problem that's manifesting itself. So there isn't really one singular approach or solution or idea that's inherently going to be able to resolve the problem, because every person here is here for a whole lifetime of reasons that are perpetuated by many integral aspects of the way that society is organized, not just in this city or even this country. And so a lot of the problem is that these problems are not being dealt with at their source. An organization like our own is trying to help the people who find themselves there. But to be able to really comprehensively approach what's happening, it has to be done in a way that anticipates the problems, that helps people before they fall into the situation, and that's able to seal the cracks that people fall through in the first place. Because often the deeper that you become entrenched in that kind of situation, the harder it is to get yourself out afterwards. And while it's not always an exercise in futility, the ability to help someone when they've already gone through so much and suffered so much on the rough edges of society is greatly reduced compared to what we could do if our society was able to have the appropriate structures to take care of people properly and prevent them from ending up in this situation. And that's everything from our access to shelter, our access to food, our access to healthcare, the way we understand mental illness, the way we understand addiction, the way that we react as a society to that. I think if we're speaking concretely for the city and for the province in which we find ourselves, there just needs to be more support. And especially in this province, there's a lack of cohesiveness for the social sector. Organizations are kind of forced to operate autonomously, independently, with very little support for collaboration. It makes it very difficult to work with someone because you're always kind of fragmented in the approach that we have to take. There's no sort of central point that's keeping track of what's going on. So it makes it very difficult to do anything more than the bare minimum in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of very basic and obvious things that can be done to facilitate a more cohesive approach to the way that we resolve these problems in the city.
Yeah, definitely agree that it's a kind of systematic issue, and we can't just solve the problem by doing surface level things. But obviously, it's very difficult to, without support or adequate resources to kind of attack the issue directly at the cause. So, yeah, I think we definitely need to work towards being able to, fill in those gaps, as you said.
Well, thank you so much for your time. That's all the questions we have for you, and we just wanted to say thank you for being our first guest on this series.
Yeah, it was, this was very interesting to know your perspective as someone who works at St. Michael's Mission and has been for so long. So yeah, is there anything that you would like to leave our viewers with, a last final message? Could be anything.
Well, firstly, I want to express my gratitude for both of you being here today, and even more so for all of the help that you and your organization gives to us and other organizations, because it's that sort of collective implication, that participation, and that willingness to be aware and involve oneself that's really the most essential for being able to face these problems and to move in the direction of doing better with them. The more everyone participates, the better it's going to be. So I'm very grateful for everyone involved.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll see you guys in our next episode. Bye.